Hello and welcome back to the Chargers Check-In. My name is Cecilia, and today we are going to be looking at the incoming Dolphins game this Sunday and taking a look at the state of both of these teams and what it's going to take for the Chargers to win. The Dolphins have some serious weaknesses that the Chargers can exploit, but the Chargers also have a lot of weaknesses. There's going to be some tough matchups. Really excited to get into it. Thank you so much for being here. Please like and subscribe if you end up liking what you see. All right, let's get into it. So let's take a look at the state of the Dolphins. And the first thing that jumps out is they are also a team coming off of a tough loss. They dropped a very close game to the Panthers, who are, one of the weakest teams in the league right now. And all eyes are on Mike McDaniel, who is speculated to be in the hot seat. Now, some things have come out from the front office talking about, they really like him. They want to give him space to work. And, nothing will probably happen till after the season. I definitely could see that being possible. They do really like him there, and I think that makes sense. I think his scheme can be incredible, but he is undeniably on some thin ice there, and so I think this is something that the Dolphins are going to see as a must-win game because there's only so many losses in a row that fans and a front office can handle. I don't think it makes much sense to fire Mike McDaniel and keep Chris Greer there, but I'm curious what you guys think about that. If there's any Dolphins fans watching, I want to know what you guys think of that situation, because the Dolphins can only stay in this state where they are losing close games, losing against bad teams, nothing's getting going. Tua is having to get rid of the ball in half a second for so long. But this is not a team that is in good morale. So while Chargers fans are kind of panicking, kind of going, oh, this season is over, understand that the morale in the Chargers locker room is not where, there's no way it is anywhere near as bad as it will be in the Dolphins locker room. Tua had a heck of a quote, as he often does.
I'm not on social media, I don't have any of that. And then outside of that, I go home, I see my kids, whether I throw 5 picks or 5 touchdowns, we win the game, we lose the game, I get to come home to my kids who are happy to see me every time.
It's not that life isn't bigger than ball. Of course it is, but it's yeah, but you're being paid for ball. So if someone asks how this affects you, surely you have some responsibility to say that you care. I get that he's being asked the same questions every day. That's got to be a pain, but it's part of the job. I think morale is really bad, and the Chargers have some serious opportunities here. First of all, last week against the Panthers, Rico Dowdle, who I talked about in my last video as a potential trade target, ran for 206 yards. And this is a guy who has only run for over 100 yards 4 times in his career before this. Okay, this isn't who he is. You know what I mean? It could be in the future. I think he's getting a lot better. But the point is, they cannot defend the run. They really cannot. Once he gets to that second level, they have such a hard time getting guys down, especially faster guys. They don't have the size on the Dolphins defense. They have prioritized speed, really on both sides of the ball. They prioritize speed over everything, makes sense for their scheme, but it is costing them in their run game, and the Chargers could take advantage of that. Now, the biggest story for the Dolphins isn't going to be their run defense. Maybe coming after that game it is. But really, it is their terrible offensive line. Just like the Chargers, they've had some injuries. Their right guard, James Daniels, and their right tackle, Austin Jackson, they're both eligible to return. Mike McDaniel said that it's unlikely, and usually coaches don't call anything that early unless they're pretty sure. So I'm not expecting either of them to play, although they did both practice in a limited fashion, so definitely something to keep an eye on as the week progresses. But what that means is there is a big weakness on the right side, because that's their right guard and their right tackle who's out. They got beat by some stunts against the Panthers. I could absolutely see the Chargers setting something up. Maybe they get Odafe away and Thule on the same side. Maybe they, have Caleb Murphy and Thule out there. They could, on passing downs, they could really prioritize that right side. You could send Derwin in there. They have so many options. Henley, so many guys who they have been known to blitz before. Now, the Chargers blitz at one of the lowest rates in the league. I could see that changing this week. I'm not sure. It depends how much faith they have in Odafe Oweh in this first week that he's here. He'll have a couple practices with them, but they also have 2 injured backups. That shouldn't impact them unless another player goes down, which the Chargers know that's possible. On their offense, to me, the big thing to worry about is Devon Achane, another running back that I talked about could be a potential trade option. With him, once he's past the line, you need to understand that he is a 4-3 guy. If he finds a gap, He can go for really big yardage. Explosive plays can absolutely happen, but they are struggling to block for him. And that means if the Chargers can get contact with him early, that could be huge. Now, the Chargers' middle of the line has been really good against the run. I think these defensive tackles have really stepped up. So many times running backs just run into a wall there and get nothing. But on the outside has been a different story. Against the Commanders, there were those 2 touchdowns where they just ran outside and lost contain, and that was that. Derwin James has been struggling to break blocks, and, I think that's one of the reasons that they wanted Odafe Oweh so badly, because he can set the edge. And so I think them running on the opposite side as Oweh could be something we look out for. I do have faith in Thule if they end up playing opposite of each other, but that is something to look out for, these runs to the outside. And that's something they already do with him because the offensive line struggles to block for him. As far as the offense broadly, Tua tends to throw the ball really quickly. That's something we all know about him. Part of that is because they struggle to protect him. Part of that is because he has such an intense concussion history that he is always one hard hit from being out for the season. And as much as they don't acknowledge that a whole lot, Mike McDaniel definitely knows that. He tends to throw the ball quickly, usually up the middle at the second level. He really likes, his spray chart, if you will, is pretty focused up there. Tier Tart could have a big game with pass breakups. I think that Derwin could be put on Waller, their tight end, to break up those passes. Waller was on the injury report. He didn't practice on Wednesday, but it didn't sound super serious. I'm not able to find too much on that, so we'll have to keep an eye on that as the week progresses. And in my opinion, Tua Tagovailoa struggles when he can't throw to his first or second read. He struggles a lot. He has that internal clock where he knows pressure is coming, and even if pressure isn't coming, he is so used to it coming that he kind of panics, and I think that can create some interception opportunities. He's very hit or miss down the field. He'll hit an amazing pass and then throw an interception where he's 5 yards off of his target. And I think coverage sacks can be a real opportunity this week. And so if the Chargers choose not to blitz a lot, they might be able to get something done that way if they have a lot of faith in their edge room, which they probably will. So I think that's something to look out for. I could see it being, a Tony Jefferson interception day or Elijah Molden, now that he's had some time to get back into form. On the Chargers side, Amarian Hampton going down is a pretty big loss going into this game, because if he were up, we would all be saying, this is Amarian Hampton's game, right? They can't tackle, they can't handle the speed, and Amarian Hampton has that. He's your 3-down back. There's no way they can out-physical the Chargers at the line. They're last in the league in rush yards allowed. They're average in pass yards, 50% success rate on third downs. That's one of the worst in the league. This is a great game for Chargers fans to evaluate. What do we think of Hassan Haskins, and what do we think of Kimani Vidal? Because if they can't run on the Dolphins, they can't run on anyone. I'm so serious. The Dolphins' run defense is so bad, and the Dolphins have a real strength at edge rusher. I talked in my last video briefly about it, but Jalen Phillips, he gave Bryce Young some trouble last weekend. Bradley Chubb has 4 sacks on the year, and he's just an awesome player. Plenty of others have sacks and pressures. They like to run, kind of like the Chargers do. They like to have different people blitzing on different plays. So many different players have pressures that I kind of look at it as they will get to Herbert. They're going to get to Herbert. What do we draw up so that the run game is strong enough that they can't prioritize that they can't just sack their way back into a game, if that makes sense? We have to protect Herbert. The Chargers have allowed the 5th most sacks this year, and Herbert is one of the best quarterbacks at evading sacks. And that shows you just how bad the offensive line is and how many quarterback hits he has to take. I think the frequency with which the Dolphins blitz could absolutely open up running lanes for Herbert. Drake May was able to get a rushing touchdown against them earlier this year. And one of the more interesting statistics is about how the Dolphins blitz at a really high rate, but they don't get pressure at a really high rate, if that makes sense, like relative to their blitz amount. And I think that could open something up in that second level. What can QJ do? He's hard to tackle. What can Ladd do? He's really evasive, and the Dolphins defense is fast, but Ladd is really fast too. So I think that could be an interesting opportunity. Again, I think this is another game where the Chargers absolutely have to get the ball out of Herbert's hands quickly. As to how the Chargers win this game, the Chargers, if you look at the injury report, even over the last few weeks, the Chargers are in a rougher situation than the Dolphins. Dolphins have dealt with a lot of injuries, but the Chargers have dealt with injuries to more important players. So the Chargers need to play a clean game. They need to fix the penalties. I am so sick of this team getting the dumbest penalties on special teams, or, someone's lined up wrong. Trey Pipkins got 2 back-to-back penalties. Granted, the second one was on the receivers, but it's just like, how are we getting illegal formation penalties? That's preseason stuff. I think that's absolutely something that Harbaugh needs to fix, and to me that does fall to Harbaugh and to Ryan Ficken. Special teams penalties are incredibly inexcusable to me. Kimani Vidal needs to be who he was drafted to be. That means he needs to be available for screens, yards after the catch. He needs to be a safety outlet for Herbert, who will deal with pressure. One of the ways you keep Herbert safe is, even on a true passing down, you give him an outlet. That's something Greg Roman didn't do a lot last year, but he's doing better at this year, so I think they can do that. Like I said, if Hassan Haskins and Kimani Vidal can't rush against this team, they can't rush in this league. Like that, this game is going to tell us how badly do the Chargers need to trade for a running back. On the defensive side, the Chargers edge room, they need to eat this week. They need to absolutely eat. I think going against a hurt offensive line, I think on the right side, that could give Odafe Oweh a real opportunity, a real spark with this new defense. And I'm curious to see what they're going to do, like who they're going to have rush on the right side. Are they going to run more blitzes? What does that look like? Because this edge room is different now. They have someone who can set the edge, someone else with power opposite of Thule, and I think that can make a big difference. I would not be surprised if on both sides of the ball, this is a big edge rusher game. This could be a great opportunity for turnovers. I think Tua has struggled with accuracy on those deep passes. Combine that with pressure from the edge room, this could get Molden, could get Jefferson, it could get one of them a pick. I could even see some tipped passes from the line from Tier Tart or Jamari Caldwell. And also, when Tua has to scramble, he doesn't do a great job protecting the ball. He does that thing where he just kind of holds the ball out while he runs. When he's hit from behind, the ball comes loose a lot. That's something that we've seen a lot. The ball has kind of bounced the Dolphins' way a few times, but anything could change. One of the more important things for you guys to watch is the special teams unit needs to be able to tackle. They need to be able to tackle Malik Washington. He returned a punt for a touchdown against the Patriots. If he gets a hole, if he gets going, he's going to be hard to stop. So they need to tackle him early on in the play and allow the defense to start with some good field position. It's hard for the defense to have opportunities for turnovers, to have opportunities to get some good stops for the offense if they're always starting at the 40, the 45, and that's something we've seen a lot. So special teams definitely needs to step up this week, not just in tackling, but also in terms of penalties. We absolutely need a clean game from the Chargers in that regard. And finally, I think the defensive line needs to stop Devon Achane at the line. That's something I think they can do, but the question is, can they set the edge? He struggles to break tackles if he hasn't gotten the steps, if he hasn't really gotten going. So if they get decent penetration early in the play, they could stop plays before they happen, force Tua to throw the ball. I think he is more for explosive plays than for reliability. Miami is 30th in total rush yards this season, and it's not because Devon Achane is bad, it's just that they don't have the blocking. He is a running back who depends a lot on blocking, and I think there's a real opportunity for the Chargers to get right in special teams, get right with field position, and it's also worth noting that Miami has one of the worst time of possession ratios in the game, and the Chargers need to bring that back. They need to bring back their style of ball where they hold on to it, slow, methodical drives down the field. That doesn't mean they're not throwing in a play action from time to time, but, they can't let this defense blow up a play before it even starts. So priority number 1, protect Herbert. Priority number 2, run the ball. Priority number 3, don't let them run the ball. Force Tua to keep the ball in his hands long enough for him to feel the pressure. Tua loves to use the edge of the field. They often draw it up like that. Quick pass to the outside or quick pass to the flats. I think that is something the Chargers can take advantage of, because I think the middle of the field at that second level is a threat, but really close by, But really the main concern is they want to get the ball out of Tua's hands. And so, hey, some coverage sacks, some tackle for loss. There's a big opportunity for the defense to get right this game, which they really need to after last week's performance. Now, my score prediction is not going to be as triumphant as you guys are probably hoping, but I am predicting a Chargers win. I think the Chargers will be able to put up 24 points against this struggling Dolphins defense, and I think that the Dolphins will manage to put together 20 points against the Chargers. Now, you may be thinking, but surely the defense is better than that, and I hear you. I could just see the Dolphins getting one or two explosive plays on special teams. I could see them, putting together a couple decent passes. Ultimately, though, I think that the Chargers win. Keep an eye on the injury report throughout the week. Definitely keep an eye on if the Dolphins offensive lineman can play. Keep an eye on Denzel Perryman, who has been at practice in a limited fashion. We will see if we get some of those guys back. But the main story is the run game. Hassan Haskins, Kimani Vidal, what do you got? That's what we're looking for. So that's how I see things. I'm really curious how you all see things. I am predicting a Chargers win. I think this is a must-win game for both teams. One franchise will be left very upset after this game, but the Chargers have a real opportunity to keep the lead in division through these difficult injured times. But I'm very much looking forward to this one. All right, that's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked what you have seen, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate those who have. And if the Chargers, it turns out, don't have a great run game this game, I did make a video about the Chargers' potential trade options at the deadline at this point in the season, at the running back position particularly. So if you're curious about that, you can head over there. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate you guys, and I'll see you guys next time.